Did British policy in Libya provoke terror here at the Manchester Arena? It is claimed that Britain operated an open door policy, allowing Libyan exiles and British-Libyan citizens to join the 2011 uprising which toppled Libyan leader Gaddafi, even though some of those individuals had been subject to counter-terrorism control orders. "I was allowed to go, no questions asked," said one rebel fighter. Another claimed he was asked by an intelligence officer from MI5, the UK's domestic security agency, "Are you willing to go into battle?" Salman Abedi, 22, the British-born son of exiled dissidents who returned to Libya as the revolution against Gaddafi gathered momentum, is also understood to have spent time in the North African country in 2011 and to have returned there repeatedly. The bomber, who came back to Manchester just days before the attack, was known to security services. A local community worker said that several people had reported him to the police via an anti-terrorism hotline. Authorities in Tripoli revealed Abedi's younger brother and father, who had resettled in Libya after the so-called revolution, had been arrested on suspicion of links to the ISIL group, which claimed responsibility for the Manchester attack and all the suffering this has caused the public. Yet sources suggest the UK government even facilitated the travel of Libyan exiles and British-Libyan residents and citizens keen to fight against Gaddafi, including some whom it deemed to pose a potential security threat to the British public. Has the UK's war on terror abroad made things more dangerous in Britain? And what is the solution to terror attacks carried out by UK citizens? Simple questions with important answers. We came to Manchester to ask the public here for their thoughts on the Manchester attack in May 2017. Here's what they told us.
Well, obviously I've lived here for a long time and it's absolutely terrible. I've lived where the guy was putting the bomb together in that area. I live a mile from the arena, so absolutely shocking, just evil.
Terrible, shocking, and it makes you feel that it's not just in the media now, it's actually on your doorstep.
It's tragic, it's sad. It's coming from a foreign country like the US, which has a lot of negative connotations right now with our president. But it's very tragic and it's very sad.
I don't actually live here, I only work here. So I'm one step removed, but I just think it's awful for the people here. I just feel very, very bad for them.
Very sad, because whatever happened, it was very sad for children, all the communities, but what can you do about it? It's out of your hands, and I can wish them, all the security agencies, best of luck to finish these kind of bad people.
Well, I mean, I think it's just appalling, and I think it's something that we mustn't let it prevent us going about our daily lives. But it's horrific, horrendous.
It's just so shocking to be so close to home, I think, and you see things on the news, don't you? And I get the train from here every day, and you just don't think it's ever going to happen near you. It's just so sad, really.
Well, it's a terrible atrocity, and we should remember these attacks take place across Africa and the Middle East on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. What we should investigate is Britain's collusion with these forces, which have come back to Britain now and are now committing attacks on the streets.
I think what happened in Manchester is inhuman, does not represent any human being or any religion. It is purely motivated by somebody who have some interest, and the government have to figure out who is behind it, so they can understand the motivation, because no one from the first scene can analyze it in a logical way.
Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has said the British government's war on terror strategy has failed, and interventions in Libya, Iraq and Syria have made Britain more unsafe. What does the public think?
I think there's some point in that, but I don't think it's the main reason why these things are happening. I mean, there's been attacks in other countries where they've had nothing to do with, Iran or Iraq or Libya. So I think I don't think that's really getting the point. I think it's just an evil ideology, really, and it's all over the world.
I can't see that we've provoked anything. How can you provoke murdering 22 people?
Yeah, look, I'd agree with that, and I think for all the right reasons that we've done these things has brought a higher degree of terrorist activity to our own shores and streets, but I don't think that should be any means to stop us from trying to prevent it, but I think more needs to be done on possibly a border control level we might take.
Potentially. I was actually reading something today saying about Tommy Robinson, what he was saying. Probably the only thing that I've actually agreed with Tommy Robinson on, saying there was an Islamic extremist who actually had his passport taken away from him to stop him from travelling to Syria because he thought they were going to attack Syria. So what is our government actually saying? Are they saying they're prepared for our people to be attacked by them rather than the Syrian people? So I'm not too sure whether the war over there is affecting it, but by keeping them here, then it's certainly affecting them, yeah, absolutely.
I don't really know. I think that, like you said, I can't understand why anybody would do anything like that. There's no justifiable reason for it. I don't know if that's had an impact, or I just can't understand anyone wanting to do that to anyone else irrelevant of anything that's happening, so I don't really know.
First of all, is Britain really fighting a war on terror, or is it facilitating and colluding with these very forces? We saw in Libya in 2011, the British state colluded with Al-Qaeda affiliates. It colluded with death squads to topple Muammar Gaddafi. That's what it did. They hailed these people as freedom fighters, as liberators. David Cameron himself called them lions. These very same forces, in particular the Manchester attacker, his family, are linked to the Libyan Islamic fighting group. They carried out an attack in Manchester, their forces, the same ideology.
I think Britain is unsafe because of the foreign policy, especially that Britain publicly supporting countries who's the source of the terrorist ideology, like Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia. They're supporting them politically, they're selling them arms, and they're giving them all sort of support any country would like from a superpower like Great Britain. And that is hitting us back here in UK.
Local mosques, friends and family all warned these security services about Salman Abedi. Even the FBI gave warnings and Abedi was under surveillance. Yet the attack still happened. How does the public here in Manchester feel about this?
Well, I think obviously they've got to have enough people to check out these people. The Muslim community's got to do a lot more about rooting out these people in their own communities. I think all these a guy made a very good point on TV today that it's not all these religious leaders that are the leaders of the community. They're not. They need to be going down to to put all these people up on TV. They don't speak for the community. They need to be talking to the people on the ground, the younger people. These older people are not they're not leaders. They're not elected by anybody. So they can't really. They can have a point of view, but I don't think they're leading the community at all.
They're very complicated, very messy situation, But it's if you're seeing the signs of something happening, you've got to do something about it, I would think. You got a reason to watch them. You got to be able to apprehend these individuals and put them in a position where they can't harm the public, innocent people,
Really sad. If they have told them about it, they should have checked about that guy, whoever have done it. But what can you do afterwards? Once it's done now.
I mean, that's pretty bad. Obviously, I think individuals on the watch list, I think more should be done to actually get them out of the country and actually remove them so that they can't do these terrible things.
Is that feasible?
Well, I'm certainly not one who would say, deport them all, but I think where things can be done to at least prevent people from travelling to get radicalised and then come back to this country, I think we should be doing more to stop that.
Somebody must be doing something. Somebody knows something about this terrorist attack, surely. There is no way that all the police know about him and not stopping him. So why are they being allowed to do it in our country? I'm not too sure.
Whilst I don't think that increased surveillance is a good idea, when there's the point of people in that religion at their mosques that would know more saying these things, then, you know, you've got to wonder, you know, what's going to be done about it, and, you know, nothing really seems to be being done.
I think it's difficult to stop it. If you are aware that somebody's doing things like that and nothing's done about it, then I can't understand why nothing's... You read what you see in the paper, don't you, and you take that as truth, and if they do know that these people are out there and nothing's stopped, then I can't understand why they wouldn't do. But if somebody's that bent on causing that destruction, what can you do to stop somebody, really, I guess?
So we have to ask ourselves why the British state allows these forces to reside in Britain. What is their interest in doing so? Now, there's thousands upon thousands of people from around the world that are against governments because they're not working in British interests. Britain allows them to operate here, allows their groups to facilitate, fundraise, campaign, radicalise, and now it's come in 2017 that these very forces have come back to bite them.
As I said, there is no logic from the first scene to the person who did the attack, circumstances. We have to understand in depth the interest behind this attack. And as I said as well, there is some interest in there which the government have to figure out and understand to stop these attacks. I'm sure the government have enough information to analyze it, and we hope to see that information in public.
22 people, including children, were murdered in the Manchester attack, with 116 more injured and hospitalised by the blast. More than 240 emergency calls were made. 60 ambulances and 400 police officers also attended. The youngest victim to be named is 8-year-old Safi Roussos from Leyland, Lancashire. What would the public wish to see as a solution to the homegrown terrorism problem here in the UK?
I think we need to start looking at either some sort of a house arrest for the people that they identify as being potential terrorists, or internment possibly. It's very difficult, but there's 20,000 people out there that allegedly want to harm us, so we need a lot of MI5 people to cope with that. So, you know, they've got to do a combination of things, but I think internment's a possibility, yeah.
I think that maybe the younger sort of generation of Muslims maybe find out where the radical teachings are coming from. We know that it's more the younger generation Muslims, and sort of appeal to the younger part of the Muslim communities.
I just think everybody does the best they can. You know, the best we can do is to warn the police when we see something suspicious. And, you know, I'm absolutely certain, especially after the recent events, that the police will do their best to follow everything up, and, you know, they want to catch these people as much as everybody else does, for crying out loud.
I think what I think they want is us to stay home, be scared, and to give them the right answer is just feel free to go out, enjoy with your friends, families. So that's the best answer, to shut them out. That's how we will shut them out and fight against the terror.
I think it's very difficult. I think it's a combination of education, re-education, and actually probably working closer with the communities and embracing them rather than trying to isolate them.
And on TV this morning we were talking about 1 in 20 mosques actually promote Islamic extremism. Why is this happening on our shores? Should this be made illegal now for them to promote it within our shores? Absolutely. Something needs to be done now where it is illegal for the extremism.
I have absolutely no idea. I said that's what I found most shocking about what's happened here. He's somebody who's born in the UK, he supports Man United, he goes to Salford Uni, he seems to be on the face of it perfectly normal person. I don't feel like, I can't understand, like I said, how somebody could do that. It's just not in a normal mindset. We where I work, we work with people of all different religions and things like that, and nobody's condoning it. I don't think it's based on anything really.
Britain can stop it anytime it wants. It colludes with these forces, facilitates these forces, sends people out to places like Libya. This is all evidence and fact now. People thought you were coming out with conspiracy theories over the last 6 years. The last 2 weeks we've seen it come out. We see mainstream people now talking about it. We have to ask ourselves, why have no political figures for the last 6 years said anything on the issue of Libya? It was open that the British government was sending terrorists to there. The very same ideology that has come back to bite them. Why does the British government collude with these forces? It colluded with the Mujahideen in the 1980s, invited them to Downing Street, hailed them as freedom fighters, then they're waging war on them 15 years later.
What the government need to do is to have the foreign policy aligned with the raised values of Britain, human rights and democracy. What we are seeing is the foreign policy is going against these values, and unless we have that fixed, we will see more problems here in Britain. Secondly, I think what we need to do is also seeing some programs that going to make people in Britain from backgrounds, whether it's religious background, whether it's ethnicity background, race background, coming all together on same principles and values, stopping Islamophobia in the media that we've seen for quite some time, and also I think we must see some changes in the approach to the terrorists from security perspective and cultural perspective.
Britain has armed and financed extremist groups to remove leaders in the Middle East, such as Gaddafi. What does the public make of the strategy, perhaps called "my enemy's enemy is my friend," where militants are used to achieve British foreign policy objectives?
And I think we have made mistakes in the past by intervening in countries where we should have stayed out of it. Really, I think even though there were terrible leaders like Saddam Hussein and people like that, they kept those countries under some sort of control, even in a very evil and oppressive way, but they didn't have acts of terrorism going off within the country at that time. So I think if we ever think about doing that again, we should think twice, because look at what happens.
We haven't got a crystal ball and we can't see the future. We only know, well, we knew at the time there were countries in need. We were trying to help in our own way, and unfortunately, if we could see the future, that'd be great. But we don't know what's going to happen.
And I don't think I'm in a position to be able to say whether it's a right or wrong. I think only time would tell on something like that. If they get it right, then they're heroes. If they get it wrong, then the likes of you and everybody else will, call them all kinds of names they can.
Yeah, look, I mean, I was discussing it with a colleague at work today. I think unfortunately some of the activities that we've done has brought this upon ourselves. But nonetheless, we can't just allow this stuff to happen. We've got to deal with it in a way that is appropriate and in a manner that really does deal with this stuff, and that we're not feeling unsafe walking around the streets.
What do we do? They have got them on side, but they're not doing anything about it at all.
And I think that countries should be left to their own sovereign will. And I think if there is an extreme problem within the country, then that the people themselves will, which maybe is a bit naive, but yeah.
No, not at all. I don't think to encourage anything like that, or to give people who have those views any idea that what they're doing is okay and that people support them. I don't think that's okay at all.
Do you think we cause problems for ourselves here as a result?
Possibly. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? You don't know enough. Like you said, you read what you see in the paper and you take what people tell you on television and you read things on Facebook, and however much of that's true, I don't know. But I don't know what you can do to stop it. I genuinely don't.
Well, this is essentially what it is. It's a hot-cold relationship between Britain and death squads. They don't have the same end goal, but at times their strategy and outcome aligns. So in the case of Gaddafi, they aligned together to remove him. But we must remember these death squads could not operate without British backing. They are not well-trained fighters. Where do they get their equipment from? Where do they get their financing? Where do they get their tactical support? In Libya, NATO acted as an air force for Al-Qaeda. Without NATO, the death squads would not have won. So these extremist groups, they're nothing forces. Without the backing of Britain and the United States and France, they could not operate. And as for the Saudi situation, again, we must reiterate that Saudi Arabia could not operate without the backing of Britain and the US. So we have to blame the senior partners in these relationships.
Yeah, I think that strategy created a lot of problem. Britain should stick to its principles and values, regardless. If everybody have, because principles and values among human beings almost similar. Peaceful, dignity, justice, freedom. All of these values are, common between human being, whether they're Arabs, English, other race. They all want to see dignity, freedom, and peace and justice. When we conduct a policy such as my enemy's enemies is my friend, even if this enemy does not take or does not have the same values that I have and fight for, then I'm having problem, contradicting myself. And that's really what happened, what we see happening. Raising democracy as a value, raising human rights as a value, but supporting dictatorship, supporting human rights abusers, fighting for democracy in some countries and supporting dictators in other countries. Fighting human rights abusers in some countries, but supporting human rights abusers in other countries. I think that's what they said, my enemy's enemy is my friend, does not work here. What works is to stick to the values, principles that goes across all human beings: freedom, justice, peace, dignity, could and should create a common ground between all of us and minimize the issues that we're facing, in particular the terrorist attack we're seeing in Manchester.
Insiders claim most militants leaving Britain to fight Gaddafi were in their teens or 20s, and most went from Manchester. So have MI5 and MI6 been playing a dangerous game of supporting takfiri terrorists who originated from Britain and went to fight in Libya and Syria? Crucially, did one of these terrorists attack Manchester? The claim is clear that Britain's arming and assistance for takfiri militants fighting Assad and Gaddafi in some way contributed to the Manchester attack. British politicians talk tough on terror. Have they finally realised that if you back militants, there's a very good chance that you won't be paid back in loyal service to the British state, but in terror, right here in Manchester and beyond?